Well, welcome back to the Communication Mastery Podcast. Here we are in Season 2. Who could believe it? And it's been a good break. I got lots of good things happening for Season 2. I want to remind you that Season 1's in the archive and you can look at it on these channels in your podcast app or on YouTube. Go back and look at what we covered in Season 1. I recommend that if you've not listened to any of those. It's growing, but there's still plenty of time for more people to catch up and to download some of those previous episodes. New in Season 2, we're going to be having guests. Not every session, but probably every other time we're going to have a guest on the podcast, and we'll see what we can learn by the conversations that we have together. Rest of Season 2 is going to be very similar to Season 1. Every time we're going to keep it short, keep it simple. Something that you can work on or act on straight away, a takeaway from each episode, as well as just those simple understandings of communication that really help us to grow our communication mastery. I'm going to add in something else, though, this season. I'm going to add a challenge to each episode. Maybe not when I've got a guest, but when it's just me sharing some insights for you, I'm going to give you a challenge at the end of something you can work on in the couple of weeks between episodes, so that hopefully this will help you to grow even more in your communication mastery. And so let's jump right in, shall we? Today it's just me, as you can see, and we're going to talk a little bit about learning and growing, because that's what we're here for. But I want to tell you a little story, if you like, to start with. I want you to think about one of the founding fathers of our nation, Benjamin Franklin. He's a very interesting guy. Google his biography sometime and just check out some of the things this guy did. He was always inquiring and looking into discovering new things. He's the guy that did that whole thing with the kite and the electricity and the storm, but he also discovered the Gulf Stream. Did you know that? He's a very fascinating character because he's always looking into new topics and seeing what he can learn from those around him. He didn't have an easy life either. Some of his relationships, some of his communication must have been a challenge. But to see from his biography how he turned those challenges into opportunities and how he was able to influence so many people. I think he's one of the only ones who actually signed the Declaration of Independence as well as the Bill of Rights. And so interesting to read some of the story of Benjamin Franklin. But just like him, we want to be people who learn and grow gradually over time, picking up from what we've gone through, learning from experiences, but also turning those experiences into lessons that we can share with other people. And so that's my kind of focus for this first episode of Season 2 here, is that learning is a gradual process. It's something that builds through our lives. And that's partly how I've got to where I am today. I realized as I reflected over the break that my experience as a coach today really draws on all of my experiences through the whole of my life, which is a pretty long time these days. But as I've learned each time in a new relationship or in a new setting, how to communicate, how to adapt my communication, now I leverage that in the ways that I help other people. So I want you to remember that your journey is a journey, and each step you take is a valuable, significant step. You don't have to be trapped by where you are now. You don't have to rest on your laurels of where you've got to today. You can always grow and you can always move forward. And as we move forward in communication, then it's not just ourselves who benefit, but other people likewise. Because learning is usually collaborative. That's the thing I learned from reading about Benjamin Franklin over the break. A lot of his learning came from collaboration and interaction with other people. And as you know from listening to this podcast, one of the main reasons I do this is to help people to interact with one another more effectively, more fruitfully, and with less misunderstanding. So it's really good to learn from the past, but it's also good to be able to learn in the present to apply to the future. So my hope is that as we go through this season together, you're going to pick up tips and insights that you can apply to whatever relationship is giving you maybe a challenge or an opportunity in communication. It may be somebody that you live with, or it may be somebody that you grew up with, maybe somebody you have to work with, or maybe it's friends around you in the community. Wherever it is, you can learn to be a more effective communicator. You can take steps to grow based on what you've learned in the past. So that's going to be our foundation for today. And what I wanted to tell you was that I've had some experiences since we last spoke that have really given me insight into how this works. There's one particular friend who I meet with fairly regularly, and originally he asked to meet with me so that I could coach him, mentor him in some different areas of his life. And I was glad to say yes to do that. But then I realized as we met, I guess it's a few weeks ago now, as we were sitting and talking, we were actually having breakfast together, I realized I'm learning just as much from him as he's learning from me. And as I reflected on that, I looked across the spectrum of the people that I meet with regularly, and I realized that it's the same story in every setting. And so although you're the one listening to this podcast, I can guarantee you there's people around you that need to hear what you're hearing and to learn what you're learning, but also who can teach you more about yourself and about how you interact with other people. And so my takeaway from the break we've had is that we would make sure that we reflect on the people around us and learn from the settings that we're in so that we can apply that to communication to make us more effective. So if you wanted to put the takeaway into one sentence, it would be that communication is fuel for connection. Or sometimes the way I put it is that it's the oxygen of teamwork. Unless we can communicate effectively, then our teamwork is never going to be as fruitful as it could be. Whether we're talking about the teamwork of two people sharing an apartment or a family wanting to be all that they can be, or whether it's a work team or a non-profit leadership group, whatever the setting may be, we need to be able to communicate effectively and to be able to overcome miscommunications as well. We'll focus in on that a little more in a future episode, but unless we can understand ourselves and one another more deeply, then we're going to have a struggle to allow that communication to fuel our teamwork and to fuel our effectiveness together. It's easy to get along and to communicate with others with whom you are similar or that your wiring is the same. Then there's very seldom a conflict, or if it is a conflict or if there is a misunderstanding, you can resolve it easily because you may be so alike. However, if the only people around you are people who are just like you, A, I don't think that's realistic, but B, you're missing out on a whole spectrum of other learning opportunities and ways to be fruitful that come from being different. Back just at the end of last season, I was working with a company where they had teams of people working together, teams of 3 and 4 mostly. And as I worked with them with their life language profiles, I was able to show them how their differences could really strengthen their teamwork. And there were a lot of aha moments in some of those interactions. But here's the thing I saw. In each of I think it was 5 or 6 teams altogether that we met with, and each team was very different. The one who was maybe leading the team, the one who was bringing in the business, if you like, they were each of them very different from one another, although they were all in the same line of work and with the same goals. But the teams around them also had very great differences. So I'm thinking of one particular situation where somebody who was very outgoing, a good salesman, had a support team who were very much focused on the practical details. And one of the support team ladies said, "It's so frustrating when I can't get the clients to do what I need them to do." And so we were able to talk about ways that she could use her life language understanding to approach each client differently. And I've already heard back from her that that was a very beneficial insight. And she's already looking at how do I treat each client differently according to their communication preferences so that the work can go forward and they can be more effective. So in every setting, there's something we can learn. And in every setting, there's usually a difference or a difficulty that we can work to overcome in order to be more effective. And that's why I love what I do, because in every setting, it's not a standard answer. This is the one size fits all. We're looking for the diagnostics in each place of what will make the difference here. What is the key to solving the problem or to meeting the need or to becoming more effective? And I love doing that. If we can find the value in one another, even when we're very different, then we'll always benefit. I'm thinking of a couple that I was coaching. This is back in the middle of last season, but a couple I was coaching who are very different. and helping them to see the value in each other. Rather than letting those be frustrations, they began to see the benefits of being married to someone who's different from them. You know, we say that opposites attract, don't we? But opposites also can conflict, and we need to learn how to navigate that. But this particular couple found ways to see the value in their differences and to lean into those differences so that they could benefit as a couple from the differences between them. So she was wired much more to be outgoing, enthusiastic, drawing a crowd around her, lots of friends, that kind of thing, whereas he was much more introverted, rather more reflective, but very intelligent. And they learn to look for the benefits in each of those differences so that together they've benefited from their circle of friends, but also from the depth of insight that the husband could bring to whatever setting that they were in. Stuff that she would have missed, he caught. Stuff that she couldn't understand, he could figure it out. But also stuff that relational issues where he felt challenged in getting to know other people, she was able to help with that. And so again, over the holiday season, they both had a much more effective holidays because of the coaching we were able to do together. So I love that we can be helpful in that kind of way. So the more I learn to connect with those who differ, the more valuable I become to other people because now I'm able to adapt. And I've seen that more and more clearly just while we've been taking this break from the podcast between season 1 and season 2. Different people coming up to me and telling me how valuable it's been that we've been able to work on communication together. That gladdens my heart, of course, because that's why I'm in this business. But also I recognize that the more I learn about myself. So as people complimented me on things that I'd been able to point out or things that I'd observed or things that I'd helped them to see, I realized only a few months ago or maybe a few years ago, I wouldn't have even known those things about myself, let alone about other people. And so this whole process of working on communication really benefits all of us. Rather than being divided, we end up being strengthened and united by our differences. And that's a great step forward. In our world today, of course, I don't know what the news is going to be when you're listening to this, but in every newscast, there's some kind of conflict where people have misunderstood each other or are rejecting one another because of their differences. And we want to work against that kind of motivation in order that we can help one another be the human beings that we were made to be. So my challenge, remember our takeaway is that communication is fuel for connection, but my challenge to you as we start season 2 here is don't just listen, but speak up. Let me know what you're hearing. Let me know what you're questioning. Let me know what kinds of issues this prods in your life or in your circles. And maybe it's somebody that you need to figure out how to get along with because they're so different from you. Let me know. I can address some of those things in future episodes. Or maybe you'd like to sign up for some coaching for yourself where you can learn more about how you're wired and how those around you are wired to make things go more smoothly. So don't just be a listener, be a contributor as well. Speak up, contact me through my website so that I know what's going on in you in order that I can be more helpful to you in future episodes. So I hope this has been helpful. This is going to be a good season together because we're going to be able to talk with guests about how we interact with one another, as well as the things that they've learned about communication as they've become friends of mine or as we've worked together. And so I'm looking forward to next episode where I've got someone to introduce to you, and I'm looking forward to hearing back from you. So remember that challenge. Speak up, go to my website, click the contact button, and send me a message. Tell me what I can address that'll be helpful to you. Have a great couple of weeks, and I'll see you in the next episode.